Ever since I was a young and I was into rapping 20 years later and I'm still here yapping. Guess I got so much to say, so I'm trying to educate all of us. I hope together we can elevate. Time flies and our life is moving so fast. What's the forecast? Good vibes to be broadcast. So come and chill with me as we let the bad vibes blow past. This is Shout Out Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Shout Out Podcast. Today's podcast, I've yet another special guest. She is a pioneer in many fields. I mean, from a long career at working at NDTV and then crossing over to become an activist for wildlife conservation. She is the recipient of many national awards and she is none other than Bano Haralu. Thank you for being on the show, Auntie.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Yes, I know you've had a very busy schedule, but thanks for making it. And like we were just discussing, it's so hot right now. The Dimapur winter doesn't look like it's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Is this, what is your thing on climate change? I just want to start the conversation on that.
Okay. I think climate change is, it's for real. And
that's for sure, yes.
Yeah. It's the way nature is responding to the way
the humans are behaving.
It's I guess it's just part of the whole development or the program of this planet, of this earth, of this universe. So I think we learn to adjust with it, and it's teaching us, it's calling us to pay attention. So I think whatever little ways we can contribute to bettering the longevity of life ecosystem this planet, it helps all of us. But that is something which is a challenge, an individual challenge. So.
Right. On the previous episode with Bambi, we talked about it a little bit, climate change. But like I always say, whatever issue it may be, I think like awareness is the most important aspect of it. Like we have to try and educate others about whether it's climate change, environment conservation, our wildlife conservation, or whatever the case may be. That spreading awareness is the most important aspect of it. Once you get educated on whatever the topic is, then you can, try and be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
And I think creating awareness. Climate change is something, don't you feel like a lot of people know about it, but you feel like you are not you can't make a change by yourself, so that you feel like what can I do about it,
Yeah, sure. You feel quite alone, and you feel that your contribution is not much, but
exactly.
Actually, honestly, like when you think of climate and when you think of nature, everything, we're all part of it. And it's the world has tried everything,
right.
From philosophy to activism to lawmaking, but connection with nature is a very spiritual connection, and I think once we go more deeper into this affinity that we have with nature, once we realize that we are a part of nature, not apart. I think a lot of that awakening can come.
Right.
And it's also a very biblical position that we can take.
Right.
That is so quickly eroding, and so it's a challenge.
This is going to be a very interesting talk. I mean, with wildlife conservation, I'm sure many people know about it also, but I like this way of looking at it, like how you're just explaining it and bringing that philosophical angle to it, and like it's much deeper than just trying like save the planet. It's not just that, it's a deeper, like how you were saying, the connection.
It's a whole way of life. It's the way you look at things, and materialism and consumerism,
right.
Living life which is not wasteful. These are all personal, individual decisions that one has to make, and how much is enough? That is the question.
True.
I cannot answer for you, and I can only answer it for myself.
Yeah, individually. Yeah. Right. Okay, I mean, we will get into that in detail for sure. Let's start with just quickly the pandemic situation. How was it for you? Like, it's gonna be 2 years now soon.
Yeah.
So how was this whole past 2 years for you, like the experience?
Oh, it was different, and it really curtailed, a lot of movement. But then again, at the same time, it was also a time to really take stock of what are the things that are important, where you are focusing, where your time, the time that you're spending on what kind of pursuits. I think in that way it was a blessing in disguise.
Right.
And also I think it brought to I was more convicted and convinced that leading getting a sense of your priority in life, and it always boils down to the simple things in life. The details are in the simple things in life.
Right.
And that way it was interesting. But I know that a lot of people really got very awfully affected by
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
The financial implications of
financial, not having people around them to take care of them.
Right.
Yeah, all these things were tough, were really tough. Yeah. And so it's fortunate that not too many people I know got affected by this. So thank God for that.
Yeah. I like the fact that I ask this to all my guests, like because this is something that happens. It's most probably going to be just once in a lifetime of this magnitude, at least. And I like the fact that that common theme is there with all the guests' answer, which is that that introspection sort of time they got to sort of reassess their priorities, or
Yeah, but I don't think there ever will come a time again
Exactly,
for this planet that
exactly.
it comes to a complete full
grinding
stop.
halt.
Yeah,
That whole
because that was
that was quite a big jolt, actually. Like
nobody would have believed
if you said that,
anyone,
right?
if you had said this like 3 years ago,
Right.
4 years ago,
That everything would come to an halt, like
even in the beginning of it, nobody ever imagined that flights would be cancelled,
Right,
and,
right.
Internally you would not be able to go country to country, or district to district, state to state, or
Exactly.
even visit families.
Exactly. I mean, I was one of those people who thought when it first came, it was going to be another like a big major like disease, but then like just died off, like the Ebola, or not
Right. Yeah.
making the
never
whole
saw
world
all of that.
blow up to
impact
this
of all that,
proportion,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Okay. I mean, hopefully it's decreasing and situation is sort of normalizing, and
yeah, I don't know whether the world will ever be normal again.
right, the
but
old normal,
yeah, will be a new normal.
yeah.
But definitely, I think we all have to make great structural adjustments.
Definitely. It's nice to see that just recently there was a Dimapur Music Festival that was held, the music festival. It's nice to see slowly coming back to life, but at the same time, we still have to be careful, all the precautions that have to be taken, all the protocols that have to be followed should be followed. So, yeah. I think you said it perfectly. It's never going to be the old normal, like a new normal. I'll start off with the shout outs. Let's do that before we get into the discussions. So, this shout out actually is personal shout out because it goes out to the Nagaland Athletics Association, which I'm a part of. And recently we had announced that Nagaland got the bid. We secured the bid to host in January the 56th National Cross Country Championship. So this is a big deal for Nagaland because we've, I think, previously just hosted one national sporting event, so this was a big deal and we were happy and excited. And suddenly, just a week or 2 weeks back, we got the pleasant surprise that the South Asian Federation Cross Country Championship, that bid was also secured by India, which is now going to be merged with the national. So it's going to be the South Asian Cross Country Championship along with the 56th National Cross Country Championship hosted by Nagaland. So, it's a big deal, work overload, but a big shout out to the association, to our president, Abu Mehta, and even the state government is now fully invested in this event because it's of that magnitude. So shout out to everyone involved and looking forward to a great event.
Great. I'm
Yeah.
excited about it
Yeah,
too.
that's
So,
very exciting news.
Sporting events are always a great,
Yeah.
a great crowd puller.
Indeed. And your shout out.
And my shout out, yeah, thank you. My shout out is for, the Northeast Network, a women's organization which has been in existence for 26 years. And I'm so happy to share with you that, there are 3 states across which Northeast Network works, which is Meghalaya, Assam, and Nagaland. And in Nagaland, the base in Chizami, the group there are doing great work. And recently, they've just taken on a very big responsibility, which is implementing a NABARD project, which has got to do with, streamlining what they've already started is with working with weavers, and also in the field of encouraging seed keepers, in the agro-biodiversity area. So these are 2 great initiatives taken by Northeast Network, although they do a lot of work in domestic violence against women, and as well as creating livelihood programs for women. So a big shout out to the Northeast Network across these 3 states where they're working, and I hope that, I really wish them more and more power in the years to come.
Right. That's a nice shout out. Where are they based? I mean, do they have a headquarters?
Yes, they have a base they're based in Guwahati. But the base for Nagaland is in Chizami, Pek district.
Right.
And they also have an
Meghalaya?
office in Kohima. And in Meghalaya, they operate out of Shillong.
Okay. That's a nice cause. Is the recent one anything to do with Chizami Weaves by any chance?
Yes, they are Chizami Weaves.
Oh, okay.
Chizami Weaves. Yeah.
So Northeast, they are part of the Northeast Network.
Yes, Chizami Weaves was born out of
Northeast Network. Oh, okay. So that Chizami Weaves was...
Chizami Weaves is doing so well.
They are.
So the effort now is to encourage the Chizami Weaves initiative and have them run as an independent. So that's the way, you make people
independent, set them up.
Set them up.
That's beautiful. Chizami Weaves, that actually Colomero was on the podcast, and his shout out was actually Chizami Weaves.
Really? Okay.
So they must be doing something right in order for to getting 2 shout outs. That's nice. Okay, let's, before we get into the topics of conversation, which is the media and the wildlife conservation, let's go back, share with us a little bit about your journey, your life's journey, in the sense that the younger part of Bano Haralu.
I know now, you have to say that younger part because, it's the years are just flying. It's just unbelievable. But so my younger years were I spent my really early childhood in Kohima when my father was deputy commissioner and studied in Little Flower School for a year, I think, a year and a half. And then we moved to Dimapur, and then I went on to study in Shillong, in Loreto. So I was both a day scholar and a boarder. So my schooling, I finished my school in Shillong.
In Shillong itself,
And then I came back to Kohima in my growing up late teenage years, and I did my plus 12, which you call the pre-university.
Right.
And then I left Nagaland and went on to pursue my graduation and my postgrad in Delhi. So my graduation was from LSR in English literature, and my postgrad was in Masters in Mass Communication.
So that,
So so one thing led to another, and mass communication was a fairly new subject.
Definitely new.
But
which year was this when you were doing your Mass Comm?
Oh God.
Just roundabout.
It's like 85, I think, 85, 87. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, around that time. So long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, like everything, television was so new in India.
This is, I do want to get into that, but just quickly before.
Early childhood was like, Dad was in the what we call the IFAS,
Yes.
the Indian Frontier Administrative
Right,
Service. So he served as a political officer in NEFA, and he was all over.
Moving around.
Pasighat, Zero, and he was also DC in Bomdila. In fact, he was the first DC of in Bomdila after the Chinese aggression.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And
So was he mostly in Arunachal Pradesh?
he was in Arunachal Pradesh, and before Arunachal Pradesh, he was also served in Nagaland in Tuensang. That time, Tuensang was also it was
What is it called?
Naga Hills
Naga-
district. Yeah,
Nefa.
yeah.
No. Okay.
And it was he also had he played a role in the opening up of establishing the administrative center for Mon.
Oh, okay.
So this is like we're talking about 50s,
Yeah.
mid 50s. And so then his he was extremely an adventurous person. Yeah, so he also did a lot of work during the Chinese Indochina War, and helped a lot in the evacuation of the Indian forces who were injured in the
In the wars,
aggression,
yeah.
So by helping to build helipads
Mm.
and in finding the right, working with the locals, creating the helipads, evacuating the injured soldiers. So for his work, the government of India and with the reference from Field Marshal Manekshaw, he was a recipient of the Padma Shri.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's the first Naga to have received.
Oh, the Padma Shri.
Shri.
Okay.
So those.
That
so
is-
our association with Arunachal is much before Arunachal became like Arunachal Pradesh.
How was that experience? Because like you said, you were in boarding and in Shillong and all, but when you're home, you'd be moving around. You lived all over the place.
We were very young, so but like very clear memories of the times in Bomdila, and snow and people coming over, especially the local people, and just really traveling from Shillong, from Bomdila, then also coming on to Shillong, and then going through parts of Assam and
Right.
So I have recollections of those, but not the areas of Mon and all, because I wasn't born at that time.
Okay. But yeah, interesting childhood then, being all over the place.
Yeah, I think we got a good survey experience of
Which would
the
later
region.
help you in your yes. But like we'll coming to that very soon. So yeah, you said you did your graduation in English in from LSR, and then it was when you were doing your masters when you did your mass communication, right?
Yes.
So by that time, I'm figuring out you sort of wanted to get into this line because you would be taking mass comm for a specific reason, right? You wouldn't just take it out of the blue,
It was a very new discipline, let's say.
right?
And so it just so happened that after I finished my graduation, there was this very interesting course that had been designed in Jamia Millia, and it had everything in it. It had all television, filmmaking, radio, sound engineering, traditional media, all that. So so I gravitated towards that to explore like what more there could be in that.
Right.
And so initially and we had like extremely good professors and teachers. So and because we were also just the second batch
Of this the course.
the course, we were the second batch, and it was a tie-up with the Canadian government. So we had people from abroad also come and take us classes, and they were extremely professional. And
I'm sure.
So it was they were really wonderful times those days.
Right. So you were getting into it without actually knowing that you wanted
What
a
I'm
career.
going to do
Yeah.
with it,
But you were
yeah.
just interested in that
Yes,
field,
yes,
right? Right.
yeah.
And so shortly after, just tell us about your journey. Like,
So then after that, what happened was there was this opportunity to foray into your own line of production, your own kind of work, and but I found it very difficult to do that coming back to Nagaland. And just by chance, I kind of appeared for an advertisement, an interview which was given out by Doordarshan. They were wanting to recruit reporters, so I appeared for that.
television reporters, this is right.
Yes, it was in broadcast
Right,
journalism.
right.
So I gave that exam and so shortlisted. So we were out of 2 lakh people. We were 50 of us who were shortlisted, and we underwent a rigorous 9 months training.
Wow.
In both in the Film and Television Institute in Pune, as well as in the Central Production Center in Siri Fort in Delhi.
Okay.
The Doordarshan Center. And so the idea at that time, with the Secretary and Information
Broadcasting.
Secretary, he was Mr. Ghosh, Bhaskar Ghosh, and his idea was that India should also have their own group of broadcasters, and that's how we were, recruited, and we were all. Most people went back to their stations, and I was in Delhi, and then I opted again, for Guwahati, since there was nobody over there.
Right.
So came to Guwahati, and that's when I began my journey.
Your career into in Doordarshan, right? That was
with Doordarshan.
Right. I mean, I just to note out that out of the 2 lakh candidates for this particular exam that was put up, 50, you said 50 qualified.
Yeah, they told us that.
Yeah,
we were
50.
Only 50.
And amongst that, you were the only one from the Northeast.
I don't know. I mean,
Definitely the only one from Nagaland.
Yeah. However many applied, I wouldn't know. But
I mean, from the qualifying 50, I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is a big achievement. That was the first step of your career, getting into journalism.
Yes.
So tell us how that experience began, because we're gonna get into this, how you were a part of both the the satellite era and the post-satellite era.
Right.
But when you first started, it was Doordarshan that time.
Doordarshan was the monopoly.
Right.
It had complete monopoly. And,
Yes.
even Doordarshan at that time was fairly. Its reach was not. So, I mean, it was all across the country. It was established with the coming of the Asian Games, and the color TV came in, and before that it was black and white.
Right.
And actually, even Doordarshan, I mean, the era of television in India was not based so much on entertainment. It was more on educational, instructional.
Programs and
it was a satellite instructional technology, some education, something site or something they call it, which was way back in the mid 70s. And in fact, television existed in India in 1959, 1960. It was already there, but it was very limited. It was attached to All India Radio. But then it bifurcated, and then the main it began its own broadcasting station, and initially so the popular programs in television was always the Krishi Darshan, but things changed with bit of the Hindi serials came in, and then I think a lot of people will remember the Mahabharat.
I think that's the most
most popular this thing. Then when private players came in with
which year was this when the private players
private players came in after in the 90s, basically in the 90s, but the television scene in India erupted when the Gulf War happened. when that was shown live.
Okay.
You know, and then like everybody wanted to be
Covering
watching,
that.
covering like live events, covering
Yes.
live news, and so private television channels came up. NDTV was one of the first.
Right.
Channels, English television channels, and they had already started, in fact, partnering with Doordarshan in producing their own programs.
Okay.
Some people will remember The World This Week, which was hosted and anchored by Prannoy Roy. Dr. Prannoy Roy. So The World This Week was it kind of like revolutionized the way people would view world news amongst the Indian audience.
Right.
Because while many of a certain class would be exposed to this kind of news because they travel abroad.
Yes.
Coming back to India, there was a whole
The common people.
segment of the population
Exactly.
which never really got to see all this news. So The World This Week was a roundup of all the world
International
political
big
events,
news. Yes.
that week. So although it would be perhaps sometimes 4 or 5 days late, but still people would see those world leaders on the
Right.
news channel, on the television.
So that was under Doordarshan, but
that was under Doordarshan,
being
but
managed and produced by Prannoy Roy and
NDTV.
NDTV.
So then of course NDTV made its own branding,
their own channel.
with the election analysis.
Oh,
They would have
okay.
these election programs where they would analyze all the elections taking place in the various states. And then when the opportunity came to tie up with Rupert Murdoch of Star News, that's when the satellite era happened.
Okay. All right.
So that we're talking about 95.
Late 90s or mid 90s?
Mid 90s.
Okay.
90s.
And just going back a little bit, because just for the audience to be aware of, you worked at NDTV for a long time. You're telling me the NDTV career spanned from 95, around approximately 95 to 2009. So that's a big chunk of your career.
Yeah.
I mean, your life also. So like, I want to just get to know some stories about this and how it was working and all. But basically, you were there from the beginning of NDTV when, like you were saying, when that new era began,
The
right?
new era began. So actually, preceding NDTV was my my base with Doordarshan. So being with Doordarshan actually gave me the opportunity to really travel across the region, because as a government channel, you have to give like fair coverage to
You're
not
each.
just on the news. I mean, you're on the news, but there are other things that you were able to cover, whether it was some agricultural program, or it was not always hot political news, although those were also part and parcel of once this thing job. But as as a young reporter also, I had the liberty to do cultural and other political stories also. But that gave me the opportunity to travel across this region a lot. And of course, when the time came to when NDTV was going to launch its own channel, the offer was made to join them. So whether it was a good judgment or not, I don't know, but yeah. So
definitely a good one, I think.
So so NDTV was launching its 24/7.
Yes.
Well, not really 24/7. We didn't start out as a 24/7. We started out with Star News. Yeah, that's right. We started with Star News, and it was a bulletin a day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The concept of 24/7 had not yet come. It was going to come, but the permissions had to be done. The satellite linkages and all that, and being in the Northeast was particularly challenging. So during that period of working with NDTV, was was very, very, very interesting in the initial years before we got our own satellite link-ups.
Yeah.
Because it was just producing we began with NDTV with the News Tonight, which was a bulletin
On Star.
No, on Doordarshan.
On Doordarshan,
Yeah,
okay.
it's only after Star News came in, that is in the late 90s, you're right, sometime in the late 90s, that the government of India allowed, live linkages, satellite link-ups. So before that, it was, as a private player, with NDTV,
Right.
it was doing a marathon every day. Because you had to get your tapes on time to the airport, to catch a passenger, to request a passenger to carry your tapes to Delhi, and from Delhi some rider will be there to
receive
that tape, and no mobile phones then.
Yeah, of course.
So with the big placard, somebody at the Delhi airport will be waiting. And I'll take this opportunity to say thank you to all those passengers who helped us out many tricky situations, and who carried the tape. Imagine, they were like big tapes, they were like the 3/4 pneumatic tapes. Now you have,
everything
you're doing
digital, yes,
and all that.
yes.
But those were physical tapes,
Right,
and they were like big boxes, and they carried those tapes, and so a lot of stories went on air because of these kind passengers, many of whom I didn't even know.
I'm sure, yes.
Who obliged. And so that's how news was being sent. So it was pretty crazy when you think of it, but that is also one of the reasons why it was difficult to have the hot news from the region to be
instant,
constantly on air, because by the time it got to Delhi, it would be 24 hours too late. I mean, developments would have taken place.
Of course, yes.
So that's how we worked, but slowly things began to change as we began to tie up also with Doordarshan, and so whatever stories I edited would be uplinked from Doordarshan, but that also had a time limit, because I would be given 15 minutes time
slot.
From 4 to 4:15. That was my time, and I would be editing some 30 minutes away in a studio, and I would have to reach that station for my tape would have to be plugged into the thing by 4 o'clock.
4 to 4:15.
Otherwise, it would miss the slot. And then you miss the slot means you miss the story. So it was like that. But so having worked with Doordarshan, and as an ex-staff, I always had the support and the kindness of the engineering staff, who would sometimes give me like 5 minutes leeway time, so that worked out well, but that was a big help to have that link up.
When NDTV first, like you said, NDTV 24/7, when it launched independently fully, you were there obviously already in with them, and what you told me was that did you pitch for this, or was this already created, like the Northeast Bureau? Like, how did that happen?
No. There was no pitching for anything.
Okay.
No. So in fact, I was working on a completely different program when NDTV called me. I was on deputation.
Okay.
From I was with Doordarshan. I was on deputation on a UNDP program, and then they called me. In fact, NDTV had they sought us out, a couple of us who were trained first,
that batch,
first batch. So 3 or 4 of us, and we went into Delhi, and the rest went back to one went to take on a station in Bombay, another in Bangalore, another in Chennai, and I was in Delhi. And it was after a year of being in Delhi that we decided that, okay, perhaps like we can now have a station in
Just for the Northeast.
for the Northeast, because it was getting too much. I was traveling every month
Ah,
to the Northeast,
right,
and
right,
it's
right.
phenomenal, like the airfares, so
back then, yes.
yeah,
Can only imagine.
so it was practical also to open
Right,
up a
right.
center bureau in the Northeast. So that's how the whole the NDTV bureau began. But
How-
we had to hire equipment.
For the bureau in...
Initially.
Okay.
Initially, yeah.
And was it because also of, like how anyway attention is not much given to the Northeast generally, like, so was it that it was of a little less priority than the bigger regions like the South and the North?
Yeah, I mean, that is always the case, and it still is the case.
Right.
Because, in television, everything works by the affluency of the audience, the society. So, the companies, they look at the spending power of
Purchasing power of the
viewers
or
of
the
viewers
yes,
of the
correct.
group, of the community, and only then will they sponsor. So obviously at that point of time, the Northeast was in the outer orbit,
Exactly.
as always, but there, it's a question of how you want to project, and you had being an independent and private channel, one had the independence to project the kind of stories that you thought were important, unlike being in the government media,
Right.
which was very government programs.
Exactly.
But although that also gave us a lot of opportunity to travel, but with NDTV it was much more of
Freedom to choose sort of
freedom
your
to choose and interpreting the whole
the whole narrative also of what's coming out of
the
the
place.
yes, because unfortunately for the longest time, and even till this day also, that narrative it still remains, right, about how the Northeast being like a place of like just insurgency, and everything negative is just attached to the Northeast, and it's I mean
think,
the situation is also as such, but not how they're portraying it to be. But I mean, it's very hard to break that ceiling, and that the image, the stereotypical image that we have.
Yeah, but now the internet and the social media has come in as a huge game changer in the way this whole region is viewed, and
Yes.
the kind of news that is going out and all that. But definitely during those years, during the late 90s, during the early 2000,
Right.
at that point, like when there was the internet explosion had not taken place as yet, there was still I would say it was important, like, to project the news that was important for people here also. But in this whole journey, what I think what is important is that while it's important for editors at the desk to have had some experience of the Northeast, it's also equally important for reporters on the ground to have the experience of their state, their region, but also of working outside, to have that experience.
Right.
It's important to have that, to know the whereabouts, how the central office, the head office works, how the news is produced.
Right,
It's important to have that sense. To
What was your actual, because you were like the bureau in charge of the Northeast. I remember you were like doing live reporting also sometimes, and
sometimes,
so what did your role consist of? Like editing mainly, or was it?
No, it was everything.
Everything.
From finding the stories, from doing the stories, writing the stories, narrating the stories, interpreting the stories.
Right.
So as we had an editor, the editor would definitely, we had
But based
the
in
video editors,
right then
based in Guwahati.
Guwahati, okay,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah, based in Guwahati.
Right.
So
Was it a struggle to find like good because you said like it being a private independent channel, you could sort of project the news like how you want. So was it a struggle to find good positive messages, like or narratives to bring up from the Northeast? because unfortunately the reality is
the
such.
reality
Yes.
is there that the pressure is always on, like we said, no, the stereotyping
Yes.
of
Yes.
the issue of insurgency, you know, and why insurgency gets so much of importance is also because I think people out there are also trying to comprehend this complexity of this whole region,
Right.
and so, and as you know, news is always about politics, but for the Northeast, the news is also about the people, and it's the lives of the people, how their lives are affected by politics,
Right.
which is also equally an important
Matter.
aspect,
Yes.
and an important matter, and so
Okay. I lost my train of thought.
no, you were talking about the insurgency
Yeah,
stereotype,
yeah.
no? Yeah.
And we had met previously, and you told me a little bit about how during your time as while working in NDTV, you had the privilege, and you said it was very educational for you also, that you could travel all around the Northeast
Yes.
and get the pulse of what's really going on, the real situation, instead of just the mainstream news that you just hear about a place.
Yeah.
And how the Northeast usually tend to say, like, how the rest of the country, the mainland, are ignorant of us, of our region, and which is true. But I just want to discuss something. I just want to know your opinion on this also, is because I certainly feel like we ourselves are ignorant of one another also within our own region. Like, I'm talking about the Northeast.
Yes.
Nagas don't know much about Arunachalis, or the Mizos don't,
Yeah,
whatever the
it's very
situation
true.
must be. So instead of always looking outwards, what do you think? What's your take on this, like, about the Northeast and how much we're knowledgeable about each other, and the
I
importance
think,
of it? You told me, like,
Yeah.
the geopolitical reasons of, like,
Yeah.
yes,
yeah.
yes,
No, the everything is of course politics is a great part of governance these days. But at the same time, like, when we look at I always think, like, NEFA, the Northeast Frontier Agency. It was an agency where at that time this whole region was far less developed or encroached upon, let's say, than it is today. Yet the discipline of administration, the regular administration that took place, the communication that was there between administrators and their subordinates. I think there was a clear line of communication. There's a clear line of who's to do what, and the reporting, the accounting was far more in order than what it is today. And also it gave also an opportunity for a cross-cultural mix of people, like we would have, like, my dad is from Nagaland and he served in Arunachal.
correct.
Similarly, there were people from other parts of India who came and worked in Nagaland, who also went on to work in Mizoram or in Meghalaya. There were Kasi elders, who have come here as deputy commissioners, or they also worked in Mizoram, Arunachal, all these areas. So NEFA was as a I think it provided, like, this IFAS service provided
sort of like a
melting pot, like,
right.
of people from different
this region.
regions to come and this thing. So, but here now with the development of the cadres, in the Indian Administrative Service, there is a you are only relegated to your state.
Right.
You have only experience of your state, and you don't have, like, experience of other states. And also at the same time, the proximity, not proximity, the frequency of leaders of this region meeting together, because they come from one geopolitical region.
Right.
It's not there because politically it is so divided. There are
Yes.
so many political parties and ideologies, and so there doesn't seem to be much of an exchange of ideas
from
for
amongst
this
the
region,
leaders,
for
right?
this region.
Just the region.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
To uplift this region, because the ailments are the same. The ailments of what we've talked about,
Right.
whether it's lack of development, institutes of excellence
Across the board, all those things.
commerce,
Yes. Yes.
health, all these things. These are all similar problems: power crisis, energy crisis. Look at the energy crisis
That
we are
we're facing right now. I mean, although
What
that is
about
pan
these
India.
things?
Yeah.
It's pan India, but this region is the powerhouse. We can. They've said that
Arunachal
from
Pradesh.
Arunachal Pradesh
Exactly.
itself,
Can power.
they can
correct.
power the whole nation twice over. So, but of course we don't necessarily want that kind of development to be taking place in the rivers of Arunachal Pradesh. But at the same time, I think there needs to be some sort of I think accountability is really lacking today in today's administrative.
And there's an interesting point you made about how you don't see the collection. You should be seeing summits every now and then. A summit being held in Shillong, in Kohima, and announcing a declaration for collaborative efforts to whatever it is, like you said, tackle environmental issues or power. I mean, we don't see that often enough.
So that's why what you mentioned, the league, the cross.
Right. Our cross country South Asian. Now it's the South Asian Federation Cross Country Championship.
Yeah. So these things are very important. Because it gives opportunity for people here, young people here, to interact with other people.
Exactly.
And because everybody is not going to get an opportunity to travel out of this thing, out of the state. But even like within the state, we don't even travel that much.
Right.
So that is again another separate issue.
Yeah.
So there are many challenges out there, but I think once we open up and we have an opportunity to, meet people and exchange ideas, then we also realize what we have and what we need to conserve and preserve more convincingly and with more passion.
Right.
And
So we're slowly drifting into the
are we?
into that area now of your current role. But before we dive into that, I want you to quickly touch on because after you left NDTV, you did have it's back and forth. You got into the wildlife conservation, but you also had short stints with the print media. So you had your Eastern Mayor gig, and then Nagaland Today, the brief gig. So I just want you to quickly touch on a few things, like how it was crossing over from television to print media. That's one. And also, what's the current take? Because the previous edition also we had Auntie Ditono, and she was also a former editor at Eastern Mirror also. But we didn't talk about that much, like how we won't be talking about much, but mainly the other focus at hand. But just your take on the situation of print media with obviously the advent of social media and the internet, and also just Nagaland scenario.
Oh yeah, a huge topic, but
just because we'll go deep into the environmental.
Being with whether it was with Doordarshan or with NDTV, I have always felt that I wasn't able to do justice to the issues of of the whole region for a start, and
our people,
because I was the only reporter for many years,
right?
And also later on, even with the issues in Nagaland, the stories in Nagaland, as we said earlier, insurgency was the only thing that was of interest. So once the 1997 ceasefire came into existence, there was hardly any reason why media from outside would feel that there was something national importance,
interest, or yes,
which is perhaps not totally correct also to view the whole situation in that manner.
Right.
But that's how the news, was interpreted or viewed. So the other times when Nagaland would be on the news is when there's an attack.
It's always that.
or sometimes when a prime minister visits, now even a prime minister visit, I don't think we'll just get a mention. Because now there are far too many
important bigger issues yes,
that are happening, and news is also, it becomes so different now. What makes news also has become
the competition about
very, very
which
different.
makes the biggest headlines.
And also the presence of the internet, it doesn't necessarily require any channel to really send their own
correct.
reporter, unless there is a big breaking news that's happening, and something of huge magnitude that will affect the rest of the nation. But having said that, my journey into media with Nagaland came about as for whatever reasons, Eastern Mirror was to be put back onto the shelf, and so it was my first brush with really working with in Nagaland with the media and also the print media
both. So it was a first for both.
So I felt very inadequate, but the request was there. So we, first of all, what I wanted to do was bring in some new what should I say, window into the region, into the state papers, which is like to have more local news.
Local news, right.
Local news, because normally, like the media here is very challenged, in Nagaland, because it's a huge cost to run a paper.
Exactly.
And also advertisements are few and far
in
between. The challenges are there plenty, but with the internet, a lot of things will change. You can get much more news from the interiors, and images as photographs also. You can have much more access to photographs, and in that way, of course, the presence of the DIPR is everywhere, right? It's everywhere. So what happens is the tendency to rely a lot on the DIPR release
for news.
So that's why it becomes very government oriented news.
All the papers sort of give that feel
we always have the same similar.
Right.
But that is something that only individual newspaper houses can handle, in the sense, like, with the budget that they have.
Exactly.
Although these are important developments, in the sense that it's good to know what is happening and what is being done, but more importantly is the follow-up. So, the follow-up on the schemes that have been launched, and whether they've been successful, or whether they've run into bottlenecks, or what have been the challenges, and so on. So fund is always a huge,
factor that plays into this.
It's a huge factor that plays into, and also the competition. There is so much of readership, but we have like 4 English dailies, So then it's the market share is like very limited, and also the readership. How many people are having access to the newspapers daily and can have access on time, because the newspaper is something that you want the first thing in the morning. So the exterior, the far-flung areas, how will they reach this? So those logistical problems are still there.
It's still there. So that is definitely, there are many factors that sort of put our local papers at a huge disadvantage from the get-go.
But then at the same time, one thing is there that also another huge shout out also would be for the media in Nagaland, is that through the earlier years when there was a lot of pressure on because of the political situation.
Right.
Yet media houses stuck to their stand. So that is
anything
one
on
thing
particular or just their overall stance on
the overall stand, because there would be like interference from
this
from
part,
certain groups, to put out certain kind of news, and all these things have been there, and media people have also been threatened. Yet the fact that they have not buckled, and so I think it says a lot for the determination of the group of people who are working in this. And as you can see, along with the parallel growth of the media, I mean the newspapers, there is also the intervention of the internet.
Right.
So that is also, it's going to be a very interesting study how it influences what is coming out in the written word, the paper, and ultimately in the end, which will last out. And then again, you have also now the entry of the television, small like the Hornbill TV,
right.
Nagaland TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to quickly ask you what you felt about this. You sort of just put it out there, so your answer, I'm presuming, is let's wait and see. But like, I just wanted to ask you, with the big boom of social media and the internet, and how we're getting our news at our fingertips instantly, the newspapers going, I mean, most of them do have their digital, like their website or their own apps that are putting out the news. So I just wanted to see what your take was on this. Like, do you think they should focus more on that aspect of it, or stick to their traditional, print media?
See, I think they will have no choice. The print is very expensive, and it will, I think, if not by choice, by circumstances, it will gradually move into the digital world, but it's could be, I could be totally wrong also. There are even the Times of India, for example, have really drastically reduced their presence, even Hindustan Times for that matter, but yet they cater to a certain
yes their own audience.
So side by side, parallel, this thing goes on. But the entry of the social media, it's interesting because all along we've always seen the English as the main medium of communication, the language, but the internet gives the possibility of interpreting this news in
local
your
dialects.
own local dialects.
Correct.
And that, I feel, is going to play a very important part. The local language is always something that communicates with the people of the state. It's whether it's especially in the rural areas, and most of the population, they live in the rural areas, and so it's going to be extremely important. As far as the television houses are concerned, very challenging, because the programs that they do right now are probably mainly in English and some in Nagamese, I think. Yeah. So now to foray into so many different languages will be it's expensive. Television is a very expensive,
yes,
medium, but yet it'll be an exciting journey. But how much the people will embrace this new form of
news or
communication.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see. But it's nice that we have all these new mediums, like locally for us to have our own satellite channels, and the good part about the internet, but also the dangerous part about the internet is also misguided reporting and
I mean that
untrained.
way the television is far less harmless than the internet, because there is no accountability in the social media at all. Whereas with with the television there is accountability.
Yeah.
But with the newspaper there is more accountability.
Right. Was there a new law that's come up regarding this reporting of news by just those YouTubers and all? I think I read something about this. Have you heard anyone?
No, I'm not
Yeah,
aware
because
of it.
obviously pointing to the
There
main
will be-
reason
there
that
will be- there
because
will be some,
it is a dangerous trend.
yeah.
If you can't just have anyone just reporting any news you like, and anyway with how big and fast internet is,
you have to be
news
very
blowing up, you
careful
have to be
how
very
you-
careful.
what you use,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
you credit, whether you are crediting it.
Exactly, your
to the-
sources.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the main topic now. So you were all this while you were already working on your like your movement with the environment, right? Like wildlife conservation, all this. And so we're going to bring it back to, you said 2010 was when you returned to Nagaland.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when you joined as the managing trustee for the Nagaland Wildlife and Biodiversity Conservation
No, I mean,
Trust.
I came back in 2010 to Nagaland, and after my stint with NDTV, I was in Calcutta.
Okay.
My last brush with NDTV was Calcutta, and coming back to Nagaland, I decided to see what I could do in the conservation field, because that is something that has always been of interest to me, especially the subject of environment. And this interest in environmental issues really goes back to the years when I began as a reporter for Doordarshan, because that gave me the opportunity to really travel, as I was saying.
Right.
And one of the main, a huge chunk of my reporting annually was always the floods of Assam and the misery, the havoc that these floods would create.
Right.
And at the same time, these floods were so important for places like Kaziranga, because the flood waters are really needed to revive the whole park. So this dichotomy, this
cycle, vicious,
So and also at the same time to see how people's lives, whole communities, villages' lives were being changed overnight with the arrival of highways and rail lines, and the techniques, the skills that they had of their livelihood, whether it's fishing or agriculture practices, completely taken overnight, and then they're just reduced to being rickshaw pullers and workers on the cuttings, chipping stones
just
on the highways,
manual
that
labor
kind of-
basically.
So that kind of a thing. So so this connection, this close environmental degradation or anything to do with the environment is sustainable practice is really important, for
So this is something that you felt was like very close to your heart, that you wanted to do something about it. With that in mind,
and also there was this opportunity to it was really it came up as a kind of a study of a subject of interest, a topic of conversation really, where I came to learn that Nagaland actually has a very rich diversity of birds. So I said, but birds, that was through a group of friends, and like it's meant to have a huge diversity of birds because of the ecosystem, the geomorphology of the state, and so on. Yet hunting was so rampant,
Right.
So one of the things we decided to do was to link Nagaland, to give another twist to the tourism aspect in Nagaland, was to include the possibility of bird watching,
right?
which is because if it has such a rich
if we do have it,
variety,
then we might as well. Yes.
So that was how the journey began, and one thing led to another,
Right.
and we brought out a book also on the birds of Nagaland, a colored photograph book, which is the first colored photograph birds of Nagaland book.
Okay, Birds of Nagaland.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're just gonna go all over the place because there's so many, like, with on this topic. So I'm assuming that this which year was this? 2010 when you just came back?
This is 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010.
So many people might not know, but like the story of Pangti and the Amur Falcons, it's such a big deal now, in the sense, news-wise, like at least everyone knows about it, right? So many of them might not know, the audience might not know that you were one of the ones responsible for bringing that into the limelight, and the fight for trying to conserve this great phenomenon, that natural phenomenon that happens with the roosting, all this. So tell us about that. How did that
so that,
build up?
in fact, that the Amur Falcon story has its roots in this 2010
The book. Okay.
Because in one of these recce, when we were in Doyang, I heard people there telling us. I was with a group of ornithologist friends, and so the local people said, like, you've come to look at birds. I said yes. They said, but this is the wrong season. I said, oh really? Then when's the right season? So they said, you should come in October. I said, okay, well, what kind of birds do you get to see here? No, lots of birds. But then there's so many, people take them away in sackloads. So I said, oh really? What birds are these? So I mentioned to my friends. I said, apparently there's sackloads of these birds which are coming in October, but I don't know what these birds are. And they said, so they are hardcore birders, so they immediately
know the yes.
So immediately they said, oh, these are the Amur Falcons. So these are Amur Falcons, and the report of the Amur Falcon was first reported by a Singaporean lady called Joyce Tan. She reported this in the Bird Ecology group, and she wrote about how the birds were being caught and they were being sold and they were being taken away,
right.
and all those, and how she saw these birds in that area. So that's how we did a little bit more study, and came to know that for sure, like, October is the month that these birds come. And we also found out that there's a Berlin-based heart specialist, Dr. Joyce Mayberg, who had carried out a telemetry science study satellite. He fitted these Amur Falcons with satellites, and one of the birds had indeed, like,
landed in
had been coming to this area. So in fact, like, the year so we came to know about this, this thing that was happening, the migration that was happening, and we had very little information, but at that point, only through Dr. Mayberg's studies, we came to realize that these birds actually travel all the way to South Africa. So in the year 2012, that was the only, like 2010 I came to know about the birds, but 2012 was the only time that I could go. 2010 winter I couldn't go, 2011 winter I couldn't go, 2012 winter we went with a group of friends from Conservation India, and we landed up, and to cut a long story short, it was like, Doyang is one area which I had visited years ago as a young reporter from Doordarshan, to view the laying of the turbines and all that.
Right.
NIPCO project
was
being
happening.
commissioned. So I was coming back to that area after more than 20 plus years, so that way it was interesting to see all the development.
2 decades plus later.
And so that's when, like, revisiting the area, we just happened to be in that area at the peak of the migration that year, in 2012, October 2012. And so all the images that you see of the the trapping and
hunters and the trappers,
hunting
right.
and all that is all of that year within less than 48 hours are all those images. And that's how we felt that okay, this is like huge, it's really big. It was something that had been going on for
how long?
many
Yeah,
years,
exactly.
And that's when we decided to launch this campaign called Friends of the Amur Falcon campaign. And
So yeah, just follow up on that. Like, tell us how did that?
yes,
I mean,
so
like
then
now we
that
know how it
came
started.
out, that came out, and
Right.
then it made like it was all over the
News. It was like right.
and a little video, trailer. What would you call it?
A video clip of what?
Yeah, not clip, but a little a teaser, a 1 minute or 2 minute teaser on the massacre of the
what was happening?
what was happening was put out on Conservation India website, and that really went like global. And the news also, which also came out in our papers, in our local papers also, that really shook the conservation world. And that's when like we also were able to get the interest of the political powers that be, and say like, this is
Something has to be done.
has to be done, because we can't just keep complaining that this is our tradition and nobody should do this nobody can interfere with our tradition, with the hunting and all that. But this is a question of hunting out an entire species, finishing it over here. It was because this is when you look at the map of the migratory route of the Amur Falcons, and this is the season that they are supposed to be coming, but this year they are late. So climate change is obviously
affecting
having
our Amur Falcons also.
around the Amur Falcons also, and how long these creatures will be around, God alone knows. But anyway, having known that these birds actually migrate through Nagaland on their way to South Africa, and they have to stop in Nagaland to refuel. So all this information nobody had before. It's only after we began to study and collect information that we were able to share all this with the people in the village, the hunters, the councils, the elders. And that's what we did.
Talk to us about that. It's very encouraging to know that they responded well to this, as like we all know now.
It was
how did it happen?
I don't think it was easy for them to accept.
I'm sure.
Was in fact like all kudos to them for raising up the bar and like deciding to do something about it. But a lot of it was also had to do also with the state government coming forward and saying that this is it. This is the time that we are going to, please like welcome these visitors. They are your guests, and also giving out public notice, the government notice that their rural development funds also could be affected if this hunting continues. So I think there was very little choice for the council and the villagers to make a decision whether to continue with the kind of trapping and hunting or to face the consequences. So a bit of a carrot and stick kind of thing, but also at the same time that coupled with being armed with the knowledge of the history of this bird and the importance and the connection that people of this area have with people in South Africa.
Right.
That connectivity also I would like to believe had
played a role in
changing the hearts of people.
We talked about this a little bit because now this is when you talk about wildlife conservation or anything in regards to Nagaland, this is the biggest story. This is the one that's always thanks to you guys and everyone involved who made this into what it is today. But it's sad to say, like we were talking about this the other day, that although this is such a big news-wise, it's always a headline grabber. You know, the Amur Falcon thing with the international news coverage it gets also. But unfortunately, it's just that there's nothing much happening around it. Like, would you want to speak on that? Like,
yeah, I think there was a great possibility of making this a flagship program
tourist event sort of
for tourist event, or even for for conservation model style, like a conservation message,
right,
that could have been taken around. But I think we just have to give it time. I've realized that in Nagaland, you just have to give it time. People will because see, by itself, in fact, like without any action on our part, or any outreach on our part, when the Amur Falcon story broke out in Pangti, and the birds were traveling, all were being seen all over, when the flag was raised in Pangti that these are migratory birds, so suddenly in the very next year you had like villages in other districts come up and say, oh, these birds are also coming here, so we will also conserve. So another village will say, oh, these birds are also coming here. And it didn't stop only in Nagaland, it went like across the borders of Nagaland.
So the domino effect was there.
Yeah, like, in Assam also, so that kind of a thing happened. But the issue here is that it's conservation is not only about the falcon, Amur Falcon. It must embrace other species also. So now there's a huge debate going on now about whether hunting should stop. Hunting is a tradition, whether we should carry on with hunting. But the question is, what are you going to hunt? What is left to hunt? And what is left, is it not the right thing to let it remain? Because even if we take out whatever is left, then we are going to be left with nothing. Because now if we look, it's all in our lifespan, where in fact a recent report has come out about the disappearance of the desertification of the Northeast, and the removal of trees, and Nagaland,
the flora and the fauna.
Nagaland is in fact in amongst the highest.
Must be
the percentage.
Unfortunately,
so
must be.
The mode of development that we are taking, and in one hand we say that we must encourage our own
traditions and practices,
and
right,
what our eating habits must remain and all that. But our eating habits are very linked with the health of our ecosystem. So we have to make a choice. Are we going to only do economic activities that are going to bring in the big bucks, or are we or can we try to have a balance? So again we come back to the same question: how much is enough, and how much is too much? So
in your personal stand, you'd be for hunting totally banned? No, regulated, or what is your stand?
I think in my this understanding, with hunting, there are a lot of positives also with hunting, because when a child is taken into the forest, accompanies the elders into the forest for hunting, provided there is prey to hunt, you learn about the forest. You spend time in the forest. You learn about the trees. You learn about the seasons. You learn about the animals, the behavior, all of those things. I think at this moment I would definitely not support hunting, for sure. But you never know in times to come how does the forest regenerate. There are some areas, villages, which complain that too many wild boars are coming and invading their fields and their vegetable farms, etc. But why are the boars invading your vegetable farms? What have you done inside the forest? What have
that has led to them?
So the pressure on the land is immense. We have a small land. So I think our development process has to be very wise. Are we going to go for monoculture, like now this threat of the oil palm cultivation? Then we are already going into tea and coffee. People can argue about the economic returns and all that, but have we even explored like small industries with the agricultural produce? So we go back again to the basics. Do we have enough power, electricity, roads, water? So somewhere like we have to make a start.
Right. I just quickly want, because you're pointing this out, of course, with the palm oil cultivation, that was a big issue that's is going about. I'm not too informed about but I have read a few things about how the danger does produce to the local the ecosystem. The ecosystem. Sorry, yes. And you were mentioning tea, coffee. Are there any specific reasons you're mentioning this, or just throwing this about?
No.
Are there some? Our ecosystem going to face anything because of the? Coffee has been taking a heavy, Nagaland's moving heavy into coffee, plantation.
Nagaland is really moving heavy into coffee plantation, and the argument is that this coffee is it is shade grown coffee, and it does not interfere with the cultivation of the local indigenous plants and all that. I would not have much details on this, and they would say that the coffee returns are very good for the farmers. So that is something that can be explored further, whether farmers are really benefiting from this the larger group I'm saying of coffee planters,
correct
from the coffee plantation. But what I'm saying is that the invasion of corporates, whether they come in for asking farmers to grow stevia, or asking farmers to grow kiwis, or asking farmers to grow rubber, these kind of things.
You're talking about the corporate angle of
how
the
corporate angle is there.
Yes.
So even tea, I'm sure small, but if you look, tea also is also again small group tea growers, small tea growers, what you have, where they just grow the tea and then they harvest the tea, and it's not a very wide area that is that comes under cultivation. So small tea growers also can benefit a lot, but we need to, who's benefiting? This is the thing. In the Jhum cultivation, in our practice of Jhum cultivation, every family is getting sustenance from the Jhum cultivation. But when more and more areas go into these kind of mono cropping, the access to land is going to become an issue.
Okay.
So what are we doing about that? So it will be interesting to study this, because Nagaland is not. We are 16,500 square kilometers. That's, and not all of that is cultivable. There are mountains and there are.
Right. Of course. Different terrains that make up our land. But just sorry, but like we said, it's going to be all over the place. But just going back a little bit on the hunting issue, and also like how you said, I totally understand your stance against hunting, but also, if it is possible, how is the forest going to regenerate its, how, if at all we can sustain hunting?
Forests when left alone, they regenerate themselves. That we know very well. And the only big mammal that we have now is the mithun, which is also another soon it'll be a critically endangered species.
Is it on the endangered species list? I don't think so.
Our mithun count is coming down. I think we're down to some 34,000 or something mithuns, whereas of course Arunachal is a much far larger. Anyway they're much bigger. 2 lakh plus mithuns. But even this, even the number of our mithuns coming down is also a reflection of how much area they're getting now for grazing. The forest areas, and they are extremely important because they are dispersal of they are pollinators. So the dispersal of the trees and you know, keeping the forests, the shrubs also.
Right.
They finish off the lower shrubs, you know, in the forest. So
their role in the ecosystem is very important.
Very important, and also it has got a traditional meaning, no?
Right.
For all tribes, the Mithun. And besides that, I think it's an indicator of biodiversity, the Mithun. So I think we should sense trouble when our Mithuns are not multiplying in population,
And
which
dwindling.
means their grazing areas are and getting lesser and lesser. You know, so I think there needs to be a concerted study. I mean, I'm just
Right. Just
talking about gathering information, and you know, but there can be studies on how much of produce that we need. I think scientifically, like, we need to
break that down and get that.
Yes,
Yes.
address these things, and what is the potential of our state and of our people to produce these.
Right. As you know, being part of this, being an activist for the wildlife conservation and all, what are some of the biggest challenges you face? Because off the top, one of the things is that it has to do with traditional beliefs and practices, and nature or animals or whatever it may be is so closely linked with our traditional system and beliefs and such. So I'm just guessing that would be one major issue that always comes up, that, you know, is a hurdle for you when you're trying to do something. What are some of the other, like, you know?
I think, you know, in the last few decades, 4 decades, you know, our what we call traditional way of life has changed so fast.
Definitely. Yes.
So much. And one area that has largely been impacted is our education system. And in the education system, we have not at all incorporated the value of our traditional ways of living. You know, and so that I find is something that has really gone against us. And you know, the traditional knowledge, giving leverage for traditional wisdom, and the link of people, learned, educated, with the village, that also has really broken down in many ways, because very few actually continue to live in the village and make a life in the village. Many are out of the village, right? Or like are leading dual lives, you know.
True.
And the other thing, of course, is this is primarily also because also of the opportunity for employment and for jobs, which has been created mainly in the urban areas.
Yes.
Therefore, the migration from the rural to the urban has been so immense, you know.
Right.
But yet at the same time, the in the rural areas, the things that could have been provided for people to continue to live there, make a livelihood, make a living in the villages.
Correct.
That has not happened, you know.
Correct.
So we are facing that challenge right now. And young people also in search of education, they have to leave their village at a very impressionable age in pursuit of higher education. And when they do that, that link with that village is the way of life is broken at the age of 9, 11, you know, in pursuit of, like, you know, higher studies in class 5 or class 7 or 8 or whatever. And by the time they come back, they have already taken on a completely different view of
identity.
So to mold and reset into the village pace, rhythm is challenging.
Right.
So either the village provides all those facilities and goes by and creates its own rhythm, or, you know, or the village will have to adapt and make adjustments to the new ideas that come in with the returnees from
from the
who have left
urban
their
areas
villages
who
and
are
who've
coming
come
back,
back.
yeah.
No? So new ideas, and often too many new ideas, there's clashes of interest take place.
One thing that I wanted you to talk on, because I found this really interesting, and I guess many people don't look at it this way also, but it's the philosophical angle you put on this, like, you know, the spiritual connect, the philosophical connect to, to nature, and about how wildlife concept. It's very interesting the way you were explaining it to me that day.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I've often felt that it's very unnatural for Nagas not to be connected with nature. And I'm sure there is, like in all of us. I mean, in all human beings. But more so, I mean, I like to believe that with people in Nagaland, you know, since ancestors were closely linked with, you know, the forest, the water, the mountains, the land, the soil, you know, the rocks,
the animals also.
And the animals also, and there would be like rituals, you know, for not so much rituals, but let's say certain norms associated with hunting. Like a hunter would not partake of a certain portion of the hunt, you know, or he would maybe not partake the hunt at all of the kill. He would give it away, you know, and they would not hunt, like, you know, those animals during the mating season. So these kind of things which were passed down from generation to generation. I wonder if any of those values are still around, you know, and you know, in their wisdom, our forefathers, they respected nature. They kept certain areas of the forest, like, which, you know, the watershed areas remained as watershed areas. So they had that
ancient wisdom, that
knowledge,
exactly,
you know, respect for the nature. And also, are we crossing all those boundaries now? I often think, and there's a rapid breakdown of this affinity with and not to get too romantic or too emotional or too what should I say, rosy-eyed about this, but definitely I think you know, there is for people like us who are dependent on nature. I think we really need to look much deeper into ourselves and into what nature has, what our land has provided for us, and how much we are taking care. You know, the Angamis, they say ura uvie. So when you say ura uvie, you also need to take care of it. No?
Perfectly said. The very interesting point you made about how our ancestors had this sort of ancient wisdom or knowledge that they knew what to do, and that, like you said, they were hunting during those days. Obviously they were hunting, but they knew how to coexist with nature. They had their ways and practices, and unfortunately, with so much education these days, we can't seem to be doing like what they could be able to, like what they were able to do back in those days, right? So I mean, just from the hunting perspective,
that coexistence with nature and
that respect, right?
Yeah, because, you know, in one of the in 2010 when we did this book, subsequently after that we also did a survey of some of the forest areas and some of the reserve areas in Nagaland, and what was astonishing in that study was to find that the lack of awareness, and people carry out the hunting, and this rampant hunting, because they are not aware of what the consequences of their actions will have on their immediate surrounding. Like, you know, you finish off all the snakes in one area, you're going to have trouble, you know, with the rodents. Yeah,
exactly.
You finish off all the birds, you're definitely going to have trouble with your trees and your vegetation, your farming, everything. Right. You know, and like, in fact, for now, like, I think in Nagaland we have very few wild fruits now. Not as many.
I'm not aware, but I'm sure
we get as before.
Right,
you know?
right.
the varieties of the wild fruits. Which one?
Wild fruits, I'm not too sure, but wildlife definitely we've. It seems like we've almost eliminated almost everything that we had. Like, or whatever's left is, just struggling to survive.
I think we will face. I mean, there will be a reverse effect. I mean, we cannot escape it.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned right now was that the awareness that most people are not even aware of, the harm that they're doing or what good they can be doing out of, by stopping what they're doing. And I mentioned earlier, I feel like awareness is the most important thing in whatever issue, the voice you are for this community or this issue. Awareness programs it's really important. And I just want to ask you, what are some of the things that you're doing along the lines of awareness programs? And one thing I just want to sort of pitch in is, you told me about the football tournament. Remember that?
We did it only once. But
but still, So I want to just touch on that, but you can just talk about awareness
some
first.
of our awareness, my awareness campaign or the education campaign has been limited to Pangthi, although we kicked off a few eco clubs in Konama as well as in Kifire. The Bhutan Glory Eco Club in Fakim is one of the initiatives that we had with through the collaboration with Northeast Network. We established that, and then it was taken over by the Forest Department, and so it's still there. The club exists. I mean, the club is comprised of the people from that village. Right. But in particular about the Pangthi education, the eco clubs, is that we have for instance in Doyang, for a couple of years we had tied up with a school. There's a Vivekananda school there. There's only one school. So our syllabus was tied up with the Vivekananda school. So the principal was gracious enough to give us one period every week, every week. Where those children who opted not to be in the sports would be part of this, and we had trained our teacher, the eco club teacher. So similarly, and they use like a specific manual which has everything about few animals and species about the Northeast, found in the Northeast, and also one specific manual on the Amur Falcon, on the Amur Falcon, the history of the Amur Falcon and all that, because the bird comes there and the kids need to know about that. So that is similarly, that is also used for the children in Pangthi. Now that was the education, and the education is more practical. So we try to teach the children to use cameras and binoculars and do drawings and take them on nature walks, and that's what the educators they do. And one of the things that we thought we should try and do is also perhaps hold an annual football sports event, because there is too little sports in the schools in Nagaland.
Definitely, 100%.
We don't hear about like inter-school sports or inter-district sports.
Don't get me started.
Inter-college,
This is definitely.
I think, youth sports is main. It's got to be the main attraction where your energy is channeled. Right. So in that way, like they really wanted to have a football tournament. So somehow
this was in Pangthi. In Pangthi itself.
So we organized a football tournament, and I think like some 12 teams from in and around the villages, that area, and within the village and the surrounding areas, they came and participated. And at least for those 4 days when the event was on, I think we greatly reduced the number of hunters going to the jungle because they were all
watching the
match.
But I keep repeating this, but I told Auntie Dethon also last time that please try and incorporate sports as a means to, for the awareness programs and all that. It's a very effective tool for like awareness programs, and Nagaland being a state where a majority of us love our sports, whether it's football or whatever it may be. if we can use that and spin that in a positive way to serve our purpose, I think it'll be a great help to us.
I think Nagaland will be a great place for cycling. You know,
Cycling is actually a big deal now, in Nagaland. I mean, a lot of my friends, some are doing like mountain hill, downhill biking. Some are just like they have their own cycling clubs. The activity is quite it's buzzing right now in the cycling.
So that's interesting. We could always tie up with these clubs.
Yeah.
And I'll get to know more about these clubs.
Definitely.
So that wherever they go, we can give them. They can spread the word of conservation, wildlife conservation.
Just a suggestion is during the Amur Falcon roosting time, which is October, right?
It's started now.
Yeah, it started now. This could be and should be converted into a full-fledged festival, with the main cause being the conservation of this and spreading more awareness about conservation, wildlife conservation in general, but the Amur Falcon being the highlight of the thing. And you can have events and such, and I think
we would
you guys or like tourism department should be involved, the state government. I don't know who else, but
they did try to have an Amur Falcon festival. But
I never heard of it, so it must have not been really done.
It was there, but having a festival during the migration is very tricky. You cannot have it near the site, near the roosting site. You could probably have it like into the village or something, but the migration site, the roosting site, is a very, very sensitive
area.
So
loud music, all that. Of course.
Regulated, and that I think this year they are trying hard to regulate this.
Okay.
We're just hoping that the birds will increase in number this year, but it's been so hot and the rains have been going on for longer in some areas. So some experts are thinking that the birds have been delayed because of the ocean current, the temperatures. But we hope that this will change and it'll pick up, like the migration will pick up.
Right.
Because by now, actually, we should be
seeing the
hearing, villages in other areas also saying that the birds have begun to come to the areas. Yeah,
definitely. But just along the lines of that festival suggestion, like the football tournament, the whether it's the cycling clubs or just have a series of events, not necessarily a festival in the sense of a loud music thing. It can be a build up to the I know it's not only your responsibility, it's like everyone's responsibility, the tourism department, wildlife, like the forest department.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea to
if there can be
so I mean, once people come to know like the season,
right,
and they can organize their events around this,
exactly, and keep in mind that like you were saying, sound factor, not too close to the roosting place, this, that, all that should be, everyone should be informed, whoever's a part of this.
Right. So there's a great opportunity in this also, to, I mean, even for schools to bring small groups to these areas to watch the spectacle. You mentioned this. I think that's such a simple thing which schools, not every school, but a lot of schools should be able to manage. Like take them on a field trip. Teach them about. But I'm happy to say, that I think already in the last few years, we've been seeing that gradually families are traveling with their children and as a family to come and view this. And they don't have to spend too many nights. 2 nights is more than enough to come and watch this and go back with a piece of history. So
it's usually it's supposed to have already started, like you said.
Yes.
And it goes on till...
It'll go on till about mid-November.
Mid-November?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a very interesting... we don't really know when the birds come. They come in phases. But there's a point like when they overlap. And peak, then numbers are huge.
Okay.
And then it just filters out. Like, they leave in phases, in groups again. but they're very mysterious. Like we don't know when they arrive, and we never really know when they leave. Yeah,
I definitely need to make that trip.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, it'll be a nice
short
family
end
trip.
of this month will be a good time. End of this month.
I don't know, the loaded with work for till the end of the year until Jan, but if possible,
then you'll have to wait next year.
Yeah, it's quite a long time.
But otherwise, you just give yourself 2 days and make a dash and come back.
Okay, I think we had a nice long conversation today.
I hope so. I'm sure we were like all over the place.
Yes, but I mean, rightfully so, because you've been in so many different fields. You've been, for the audience that might not know, a recipient of many awards for your.
No. Yeah.
No. I mean, it has to be said. This this show is about positivity, and it's also about appreciating our Nagas in whoever comes on the show.
You.
It's about giving their flowers when you're still alive, and appreciating you, commending you for what you've been doing. You got that Chameli Devi award, National Chameli Devi award, right?
Yeah. Just Chameli Devi. Yeah.
Oh, just Chameli Devi award. Sorry. That is, I read about it, is the longest running media award for women in Nagaland, in India. Yeah.
Chameli is the name of the lady, the first woman journalist.
Yes. I just read about this. Yeah.
So it was named
and then
after her.
That was for journalism. Then the Nari,
the Nari Shakti.
Nari Shakti award.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is for your line in wildlife conservation and journalism, both, right?
Yeah.
And other awards. I won't keep going on and on, but just to let them know that you are someone who's been contributing to, and making us Nagas proud. So we appreciate that. Before we wrap up, I let the guests always give 3 quick messages. You can look into that camera and give the messages. One is to family.
Yeah.
One is to friends, and then the third is just to the Nagas in general, on any topic, anything, just advice, a message.
Okay.
So you can just take a minute to put that together.
Yeah. So to my family, thank you for all the support and enduring all my outbursts and like I come in like a tornado and that's what I'm told, and thank you for the love and support, and in all my crazy ventures, thank you.
To your friends?
To my friends.
Or especially, I ask the guests, friends, but maybe someone you lost touch with along the way, like an old classmate that was really good friends with you, or just if at all, by any chance they do catch this podcast and they'll be like, oh, I know her.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you to my family for their love, their support, and enduring all my crazy ideas, and always being there to lift me up. To my friends, especially those who have steadied me along this conservation endurance test, and I thank you for your wisdom, for your patience, for your cooperation, and for the support, and for opening up a whole new world for me in my association with all of you out there. And to the youth in Nagaland, you have a beautiful state, and often we say that diversity and tribalism is our weakness, but I would like you to turn it around. The diversity of our land, of our people, is our biggest strength. It's our treasure. So discover it, explore it, and be enriched. Thank you.
Very apt message for this particular point of time. Thank you once again, Bano Haralu, for being on the podcast. Such an enriching experience. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.